See how long it takes for Twitch to catch on that we're streaming. I don't need those headsets anymore. I've already talked for like 4 hours today, so I'm not sure how good my voice will hold up, but we'll give it a shot. What we're going to do, oh, we're live, so I'll go ahead and tell the world. What we're going to do today is brainstorm. So let's go over here and tell people that we're streaming. Streaming, brainstorming, story, mission ideas, come feed me missions, paste, game dev. And then over here. All right, so basically we're at the stage where we need to start thinking about how the game progresses. And I did a lot of work off screen trying to figure out how things would actually fit together, because the core idea here is that your ships are going to be going on missions. You're going to be building fleets of these relatively simple ships, not like big fleets, like, 3, 4 ships. And they're going to be doing background tasks while you do other stuff. It's not really like a waiting game. It's not intended to be a gating mechanism. It's just that you want the ships to be functional even while you're not focused on them. And if you focus on one of these simple ships for too long, it's too simple. So, we're going to have a variety. But that means that what we need is a mission system that can integrate into a standard job system. So if you're a ferry, then you want to have missions that integrate in with ferries. And the way we do that is we use culmination tasks. We tell where that particular mission will have its fulcrum point, its most important point. And so for a ferry mission, that would be when you drop off your passengers. So that would be, landing on a planet, people getting off, that sort of stuff. And that would mean that the other missions can integrate into the ferry mission and have that same culmination point. It'll be very easy to build. It'll work well. But we need a lot of missions. We need a lot of things that can happen in the game. So that's what I'm going to do for the first part of this at the very least. We're going to brainstorm missions, low combat missions for space adventures. And so I've opened up LibreOffice, which I think is like archaic at this point. I think you're supposed to be using OpenOffice again. We switched over to LibreOffice because OpenOffice got like bought by Oracle or something. I don't remember. And now they're not. I don't keep track of these things. It works. Doesn't need to be upgraded. So, space missions for spaceships. So we got a lot of things that we're going to need. We're going to need tasks, ongoing tasks, ongoings, and we're also going to need to have complications, which are things that can happen during ongoing tasks. And for all of these, we're going to be creating just the ideas, anything we can come up with. If you comment things in chat and make sure, it might take me a second to catch on because I have a lot of windows open with brainstorming things here. So ongoing tasks are things like trash collection, for example. Now, when we put in a task, we're also going to want to put in the fulcrum, the point where something actually important happens. And this could be the end scene, the final scene. It could also be somewhere in the middle. But it can't be the midpoint, because the midpoint is probably where we'll introduce the complexities. So at this point, we're going to be, drop off at incinerator or whatever, drop off at a garbage dump. So what we need to think about is what sort of elements, what sort of keywords are actually involved in dropping off at the location. That would be cargo drop off, it would be an orbital platform, I believe. I don't think that we're going to be using trash. There's no reason to bring trash down to a planet. So industrial station reached. We'll just call it industrial station because we know that if it's a zone that's what it's reaching. Hold on, it's really cold. Turn on some heaters. All right, sorry about that. So, Basically, the trash collection is going to have its culmination at the cargo drop-off and at the industrial station, which means that we can integrate it with any complications that have a cargo drop-off or an industrial station as their most important element. So, for example, you might get involved with a mission where you have union labor dispute, so labor union dispute, which also has industrial station as a fulcrum point. So that means that you can get involved with the labor dispute over the course of your mission, and then when you reach the industrial station, that's when it hits its head. And at the same time, your trash collecting is also hitting its head, and any other thing you're doing is hitting its head. So all of our complications are going to integrate into our ongoing task like this. We have industrial station here. We can also have laborers. And we can, polish this later. It's just brainstorming. So feel free to chime in if you have ideas, even if this is after the fact, like you're watching it on YouTube or something. So let's see. Ongoing tasks on medical support. Let's leave that blank for now. Let's look at some other tasks. I'm just sort of thinking this out. Towing rescue. That didn't work. Thank you. So this would be reaching, when we've towed it back to civilization. So this is going to be dock, yeah. And drop off, so ship drop off. Dock. Yeah, that should do. Now, the question here is there are several different brands of towing and rescue. There is towing and rescue crew still aboard, towing and rescue abandoned ship, what's it called, derelict. And these would be variants on the main ongoing task, and they would have different sort of, final objectives here. So crew drop off. Or we'll call it spacer drop off because you're the crew and you're not dropping off your own people. And then here there would be like no people, but some kind of I don't know what we call it, legal rewards, fee collection based on the scavenge. We'll call it scavenge. So with this in mind, we can use different variants of the towing and rescue mission. Zargi says, I can finally show what I'm working on. Can I post the tweet in here? I think so. I know you can post stuff in there. I don't know whether or not a tweet will show up properly, but you're obviously welcome to post anything you want in chat as long as it's not going to upset Twitch. So, nothing that'll just upset Disney or Google or Amazon, or PayPal, or any of the other puritanical companies that seem to run the world these days. Zargi posted a link to a tweet, which is Nanokin, welcome to Prehistoria, one of the many landscapes. So you're working on a sort of, it looks like I can't tell exactly what sort of game it is with the sound off, but it's a 3D world with pixel sprites in the 3D world. That's an interesting idea. And you got a lot of comments on it already. I think you're already more popular than me by quite a margin. So I don't know whether my regards are worth much, but I think it looks cute. I'll go ahead and follow you. There. Oh no, I closed too many things. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so we're going to continue brainstorming. Where did our brainstorming? Oh, there it is. So we're going to want to map a star system. So mapping. And then there would be mapping asteroids, planets, stars. So there are another couple of things that are worth considering. For example, whether or not these go to other star systems and stuff like that. But that can all be done later. We don't have to worry about it yet. So once we're done mapping, we would return to an inhabited, what do you want to call it? A colony, world? It's any place where people live. Call it just colony. So all of these are going to have the same setup, so we're going to just leave them empty. They don't have a different culmination. They just have a different path to reach it. Let's see. Mapping an anomaly. Is it anomaly or anomaly? I think it's anomaly. So this would be medical support, where you're trying to heal people. Healing people is something that seems like the culmination is a little hard to define, because what's the culmination of healing someone? It's them getting better, right? So I guess we'd call it defeating the sickness, medical intervention. Let's call it intervention. We'll come up with a better name later on. But this is why we're brainstorming, or why I'm brainstorming, because it allows me to work out things like what keywords we're going to need, what kind of focus we're going to have. So medical support there. What we're supporting could be a ship, could be a colony, a variety of colonies. We could also do ecological support, which would be scanning and planting and that sort of stuff. And I guess it would culminate in land mission. Why is it still so cold? I turned you on. Don't turn yourself off. So that's going to involve like scanning and stuff, but that should be fine. It's going to have a lot of fun things, like there could be weather disasters and stuff. So let's go ahead and just put in some quotes like weather. We'll figure that out later. Let's just keep moving down the list. Feel free to chime in if you got good ones, but I got a load here. So we're going to want to do liners, or what do you call it? People moving. Passenger drop-off. And we're going to presume that it's a colony. There we go. And this is going to be people moving liner. Evacuation. Temporary housing. Relocation. High security criminals or politicians, etc. So those are just variants that are going to be fun. Zargi says, so what are you working on? I think he's talking to me. So I'm trying to think of all of the missions that we're going to need in order to make this game work. Basically, what we're going to be having is every ship gets assigned to an ongoing task. You build your ship for a specific ongoing task. So you might build a trash collector ship, just as an example. And it'll go ahead and do that task in the background. After you've done the task once, it'll just do it in the background. And you can go on to build some other kind of ship, just because you want to have some variety. But things go wrong, so you're going to have to go back to the ship you built, back to the crew you assigned to that ship, and take them through a unique task that's based on the task that they're primarily doing. So what we do is we list all of the critical endpoints of our ongoing tasks, and we can find details or complications that have the same final elements, and then they'll integrate really, really easily. So, for example, down here we've got a labor union dispute as our first complication. This has an industrial station culmination, and this has an industrial station culmination. So you could have a labor union dispute as a unique twist on your trash collection. But you couldn't have one as a unique twist on your people moving, because none of these drop off at an industrial station. Not unless we decide that there is an industrial station variant. Space pirate ninjas or no buy. Well, if there are space pirate ninjas, they're going to need missions to support them. Funny thing is that I'm actually looking over here at the suggestions, and one of the suggestions right at the top is piracy. Well, protection is actually... piracy is not really something I feel comfortable making ongoing because it shouldn't be something that's easy. Every single time you try to pirate, every single time you attack someone, it should be something that you have to push through. You have to run the numbers. You have to take the damage. This is all stuff that happens without you taking any damage. Like if a mission goes successfully, you're not going to take any damage. So combat missions are not necessarily a good fit, but protective missions are. Because you can protect and then nobody attacks. So when you're guarding, the culmination is going to be reach destination. But the destination can be anything, right? So we're going to have a couple of different kinds of guards. We're going to have a guard convoy, in which case the destination is a colony. We can have a guard, what's it called when you are carrying stuff around? Barge? A cargo. And if we're guarding a cargo, it's going to go to an industrial station. And it's all going to have cargo drop-off. Oh wait, we're not actually carrying the cargo. We're guarding the convoy, so that's fine. We can guard people, in which case we're going to a colony. Yeah, that's fine. What else can we guard? We can guard planets. It's like a stockade, I guess. And that would be, we would culminate in leaving. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to call it here. That's fine, though. We'll call this location rather than planet. So at the top, what we're going to do is add in some keywords. Some of our keywords have chains. So for example, we've got location. And we've got varieties of locations. So we've got locations, and that could be a colony, or it could be a planet uninhabited, planetoid, or it could be a colony, deep space. Anyway, the colony can be an industrial station, or a planet inhabited, or a dock. So that's the sort of chain that we're looking at here. And the reason this is important is because we can always drill down. So if we're dropping someone off at a dock, we wouldn't be able to change that into an industrial station for the purposes of having a unique mission. But we would be able to change something like this over to an industrial station. So we could just by fiat say that this people moving situation is actually dropping people off at an industrial station rather than a colony. That doesn't really make sense for people moving though, so we're going to want to have this be some non-industrial station. So we've got an industrial station, we've got dock. We're going to need to have an inhabited region that's not industrial. Just run a suburbs. Well, let's just go with Thesaurus Colony. Oh, it's thinking colony like someone that got conquered. Society, neighborhood, district, hamlet. Ward. Let's go ahead and look up residential. Urban. Urban will work. All of these can be on planets or not, so we'll just say inhabited but not urban. So there we are. So I don't know whether or not that's going to be Um, well, I guess we can call this suburban. Exciting. 2 huts and a duck, Thorellin says. So let's go ahead and keep going. I was just doing guard. Temporary housing, did that. Mining and searching for resources. So we got mapping, but that's not the same as scanning. So let's have scanning as a separate one. So when we scan, the culmination is, again, leaving. So I guess leaving is going to be a pretty important location. So scanning is obviously for leaving. We could be scanning for resources. We could be scanning for our, we could call this mineable resources. Mineable resources. We could also be scanning for debris, escape pods, water. There, fun. Oh, so we also want to do maintenance. That's a really important one. We'll put that up above the rest here. And this will be repair. So we could maintain almost anything. We could maintain satellite networks. We could maintain ships. We could maintain space stations. Which means that we would be able to do this. Wow, that's going to be a complicated setup. I'm going to have to think about how to do that. Maybe it's just that they're separate. So colony, industrial station, dock, urban, suburban, that has nothing to do with whether it's a planet or a space station. Planet and space station are separate from that, which is fine. Let's see here. What else can we maintain? Like traffic lines, warp gates, jump gates. Yeah, that's probably fine. Let's take a look here. We could have ships that are intended to create, for example, ships that are dockyards or solar arrays, but I don't think that we're going to want that. So let's go ahead and put that into potential tasks. And that would be generating resources, solar power, food, etc. And we have the option here, not just ship and colony, but also convoy, which is like just a series of ships. So we also need to have the idea of some kind of terraforming, which may or may not be something we do. So we'll just put that down there. So lining, the liner, the people moving, this is liner. It could be prestige or not. Yeah, it's fine. Moving down the list here. Oh, delivery, right? We got cargo. We don't have cargo. Okay, cargo. Obviously, that's actually probably the #1 thing. Mass cheap stuff. Small expensive things. Things that require extra care. Fast delivery. All right, that's cool. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Mapping. Mapping might just be verification. And this will be leaving, I think. So we've got a lot of ideas for science. I do like the idea of having plenty of science in the game. I don't think I can just have one generic science mission. We'll have to come back to it once I think about it a little bit. So that would be things like xenobiology, translation, archaeology. We'll call those two separate things. Xenoarchaeology. Right. Let's see. We also need politics. Politics. That would be things like ferrying VIPs, hosting. We'll call hosting separate. Yeah, that's fine. So hosting. So that'd be things like trade, negotiations, political negotiations, cultural negotiations. Politics, we might have, cargo, mail. So we also need installation. We got maintenance. That's very similar. So we'll just put it down here. Satellites. Testing. Installations. Jump gates. Suburban facilities, space station facilities. I really like how every time I sit down to have one of these weekend streams, I get super hungry. It's like you weren't hungry until you sat down and started to do something. But every time I do it, I'm like, yeah, well, I haven't eaten. So obviously I'm hungry. I just didn't realize it. Oh, that's right. I guess it falls under satellites. That's fine. So we gotta do other things like minefields. That might be too violent. So let's talk a little bit about some of the possible complications. Escape natural disaster. Solar event, weather event, orbital event. Yeah, that's probably fine. And of course, we've got survive natural disaster. This could be like impact. But these are like the super cheap ones, right? Except for the fact that these are all leave. So when you leave something as the main objective, then what you could get is an escaping natural disaster subplot. So it could be like, well, you're supposed to scan this star, but the star is exploding. So do you scan it and then go home, or do you just go home? And that sort of decision is going to make it easier or harder to actually get things done. And so the various differences are probably just different places we're leaving. I'm not sure. So this would be surviving disaster. It'd be like impact, electrical failure, or what's it called? Electromagnetic pulse. Systems. Failure. This is generic. We can use it anytime. Mysterious explosion. And this will have anomaly as a possibility. So we can also find an unusual thing. So unusual discovery. So the problem is, how do you make an unusual discovery last the length of a mission? The unusual discovery has to happen all in the same place, and what does it culminate in? How does an unusual discovery culminate? Don't know. We'll leave it for now. We will just try and figure it out and then come back to it once we have. These generic ones can really be interesting because we can have system failure as a separate thing. System failure. Generic. The generic ones are generally going to be second tier complications, things that get put on top of another complication. So this would be things like comms failure, engine failure, etc. We could also have a crew member problems where your injured crew member needs extra assistance. So we'll call this crew member in distress. Injury needs treating. Sudden illness. Extreme case of party fever. You know, any kind of psychological thing there, but it could be cultural. So let's go ahead and just keep that. So we'll call this psychological illness, cultural obsession, this sort of thing. Falls in love with other critical mission character. This sort of stuff. It's not that difficult. Just quickly take a look here. All right, yeah, that's all good. Racing, that's a good one. Let's go ahead and make racing one of the options here. Local, interstellar. So we have scanning as an option, but this is different from exploration. So is mapping. It's all different. So let's go ahead and have exploration as its own thing. Let's not. Let's go ahead and just call this exploration mapping. Right, and people moving. Tourists. Let's see. Oh, support. That's a good point. So let's go ahead and add in support. Probably leaving, and then of course we got support as in any other ships doing things. So basically we can just roll a support ship into any other mission we'd like. So if you build a ship that's specifically for support, then that probably means your comm systems are good, or you've got a lot of extra science. And the idea is that you can act as an organizer and amplifier of whatever other people are doing. But the key here is that this turns any other mission into a leaving mission. So this means that if you were playing support and someone was doing maintenance, your support mission ends when you leave. Their maintenance mission ends when they repair or adjust. So that's an interesting way to change it so that you get a different kind of unique set of circumstances. So, yeah. Unfortunately, repair adjust is hardly a... there's no complications that use that yet. Oh, that's right, sample collection. We'll call that separate from science. So. And that would be returning to a science base, which we'll go ahead and put up here. Not bad. A lot of these are going to be like complications. So for example, we might have spy in the midst, deploying our own spy. And those would be things where we might have crew drop-offs or character drop-offs being a major element. But here's the thing. What sort of unique affair, unique chain do spies actually involve? Because a spy is a character. It's not an event. So what we really need to do is come up with events that the spies are part of, that the spies cause. Oh, yeah, religious events. That's good. I called it a cultural obsession, but it could easily just be a religious event. That was the Relin giving me that. So the spies are not events on their own. They would need to have an event attached to them. So we'd have like spy versus spy. So spy versus spy. And how would that culminate? What sort of event would this end in? Well, I think it would have to end in arriving somewhere rather than leaving somewhere, because the spies are trying to get something done, but it could also be like a sabotage. So let's go ahead and have a saboteur event. And the saboteur event will get fixed upon repair, adjust, deploy. So that will be deploy. Yeah, that'll be good. We also have a saboteur which can get crew drop-off. That would be like an industrial saboteur. So this will be like industrial saboteur. Is it saboteur? I can't remember. Let's just take a quick look. Saboteur. Yeah, it is. It's Sabo. So I'll just spell it right. And now for the spy versus spy, we have to figure out how does that involve your crew. I mean, these are like elements of plot rather than events that happen. So we need to set up some kind of situation where these things would work. And a lot of that's probably going to be in hosting here. Person drop-off, passenger drop-off. That's going to be a lot of this stuff. So let's go ahead and put that in here. And then what we'll do is this will actually be like complete circuit. So this will be, I'm not used to having the font this large. It's actually really hard to see. Spy escapes. And this will be a passenger drop-off. And that's all good. We can have a couple different variants there. Enemy spy, friendly spy, criminal. Just say this: a dangerous person escapes. And the idea here is you would get to choose whether to. It could be that you choose, or it could be that you are striving to find them and you need enough points. So it's going to be a matter of how I write the variants. That'll be fun. Oh, right. Just random touring, which I guess would fall under guard. And I think I want the idea here that we've got a lot of complications that we need to write. So let's see. Uh, a ship pretending to be another ship. What's it called? Dummy ship. So the dummy ship could be pirate lure, maybe a smuggler. Yeah, so smuggling operation. That's a good one. So the question is, we're smuggling on accident. We're smuggling on purpose. Enemy or other ship in convoy smuggling. Nobody's smuggling, but the cops say we are. And these are the sorts of things where leaving is probably the point of conflict there. So could also be arriving or leaving or arriving. So that's pretty generic, I guess. Anything that's not a construction or a tweak. So the dummy ship could be we're luring pirates. Pirates are luring us. We're blockade busting. Oh, that's actually not a bad idea either. Training. Training ships just run standard missions, so again, it's going to be any other mission. Let me think here. Just looking through all these things that people have suggested. Oh, of course. Now we've got a lot of medical based complications here. So we're gonna have plague as a separate event, I guess, because plague resolves or culminates when you arrive at any inhabited location. Whereas medical emergency is something that you need to resolve, but it's not necessarily contagious. So medical emergency need assistance from you. You need assistance. We also have things like no medical supplies available, or rather hunt for medical supplies. Patient will not behave. And these are like, so if you think about it, these complications are basically like Star Trek plot lines, Star Trek episodes. So the idea here is that these would be either A or B plots to a Star Trek episode. And so, for example, a medical emergency could be an A plot. It could be like, so-and-so has caught psychic fever and is doing psychic things and is going to explode. But it could also just be a B plot, like, Barkley caught lizard flu or whatever. That's why there's a lot of variance here, because there's going to have to be like A and B variants on a whole bunch of different ways. And how they culminate is the question, because these don't necessarily culminate at the end of their mission. They might culminate in the middle, so that would be like a successful treatment. What did I call it? It wasn't treatment, it was intervention. Now the thing here is that intervention is a term that isn't used anywhere else, and so we might get intervention here. So that'd be like medical support and also medical emergencies. So this is not a great place to put it, because intervention, we don't want it to be medical on top of medical. We want the medical emergencies to be other things. So maybe we'll just call this generic, and it won't have a specific culmination most of the time. Right, so we're going to have a digital emergency as well. We'll put that down here under system failure, hacker AI. So we got our dummy ship, blockade busting, avoiding inspections. Of course, inspecting is a perfectly valid main role. It would be fun to get inspecting and avoiding inspection as the same thing, right? Safety. So that would be things like, what was it called? When you get your car gets a good ticket of health. I don't own a car, so I don't know what it's called. It's just called an inspection ticket, I think. Ship bill of health. Station bill of health. Import, export. Censorship, mail interception. Let's see. That's most of the things I had recommended to me. So that's actually a fair number of objects. So we have to get more complications, but that's fine. We're going to have plenty of time to invent them. I want to just take a second. I'm going to actually end pretty soon because I'm starving. And also my voice is going. But what we're going to do is we're going to need to make sure that this idea works. We're going to need to make sure that the concept works, because the basic idea, if this falls through, then we are stuck in a game that isn't fun to play. So the idea here is that you assign your ships, you build a ship for specific ongoing tasks, and then they do them in the background, and then occasionally you'll get a random task that is unique, made unique by complications. And that would be any of the variants of the ongoing tasks. So if you were doing cargo runs, you might be running mass cheap stuff continuously, or you might be running a variety of things. But either way, you get a variant that's one of the things that you do. If you're maintaining satellites or ships or space stations, you'll get one of those just kind of arbitrarily chosen. Now, if we're doing something like a towing mission, a towing mission goes to either a crew still aboard or a derelict. So we get either scavenge or space or drop-off, along with ship drop-off and dock. But we do not have any complications for ship drop-off, dock, spacer drop-off, or scavenge. Those are all things that we do not have complications for. And the question is this because they're too specific, or is it because we don't have enough complications? So when you think about the kinds of complications that you're likely to get with towing and rescue, if the crew is still aboard, the crew might be sick, or they might be murderous. So those are the sorts of things where you would get to a situation where you have to figure out how to avoid that. And it may be that the ship drop-off is is badly named, and instead of ship drop-off, it should be, rather than spacer drop-off, this should be passenger drop-off. But even then, passenger drop-off is not something that we see, so this would be passenger drop-off. So let's go ahead and say criminal on the run, criminals, just criminals. And this is, again, going to be passenger drop-off. And here, this is listed as ship drop-off, but we're going to call it cargo instead of ship, because you're pulling the ship, and it's a ship, but it's also just cargo. So that's all well and good. I'm not sure that scavenge is needed anymore then. Yeah, that's fine. So with this in mind, we don't have really any cargo drop-off complications, but cargo drop-off is a task that is mostly about where you are. So I'm trying to think of any kind of stories that would end with a cargo drop-off, and they would mostly be smuggling stories, right? So if you're dropping off cargo, you need to be careful not to have cargo that's illegal, or you're trying to sneak illegal things past someone. And those are things that end, or rather they culminate, with you actually dropping off that cargo and either getting caught or not getting caught, finding things or not finding things. Yeah, so I think this is going to work because let's give an example. Let's just run through it. You go out on a towing and rescue mission, and you find a ship, and you tow it back to dock. During that, we actually spawn in the idea of a smuggling mission. So this is going to be a we're smuggling on accident mission, where you pick up the derelict ship, and there is actually, it's a smuggling vessel, and there is actually contraband aboard the ship. And that unfolds at the same time as the towing mission. So you're spending your engine resources to move into position. You're spending your support resources to repair and fix up and then attach and tow. And you're spending engine to tow it back to dock, that sort of stuff. You're spending command to take command. And those, that's not actually a whole lot of steps, but some of those steps are very long, like only to spend 50 engine resources or something similar. Over the course of that, you're going to get the smuggling mission woven in, and it's going to be like, someone does something suspicious, and then you spend a character or maybe command points to try and notice it, and that sort of stuff. If you don't notice it, you'll go down the failure path, and if you do notice it, you'll go down the success path, which might lead to like combat, or with really, really high difficulty command challenges to try and get them to either give up on the smuggling or to turn them over. And as that's unfolding, that's just the A plot. We need to have a B plot as well. Since this is a ship which has people aboard, we're going to get passenger drop-off. So, well, obviously criminals is one of the passenger drop-off options. So is the dangerous person escapes. So, for example, we might randomly choose a friendly spy, which means that aboard the smuggling mission, there's actually a cop who's keeping tabs on the smugglers, right? And he doesn't know whether you're a smuggler or not. And it's going to be a command challenge to tell whether you're going to go down the friendly path or the enemy path with your friendly spy. The friendly path or the he doesn't trust you path, or they don't trust you path. So we can do that because it's got the same culmination. But here's the thing. These stories are all going to have much more specific culminations. So it's not just passenger drop-off. In the actual story, it's passenger drop-off and other things. And that is because what we're doing is we're actually expanding the number of keywords in our culminating scene. So it might be passenger drop-off and political espionage, for example. How do you spell espionage? Espionage? Spying. Stealth. So with that in mind, we may end up getting other missions that are related to that. So we might have another mission which would be like VIP, and that could be a political VIP, which would have a political, and this would be passenger drop-off, right? But there's also things like legal struggle or legal complication. What's it called? Edge case, legal edge case. So if you have a legal edge case, that's going to be political. So when you're first doing this, when you're building it, the computer is building it, right? The computer says that you are doing a rescue system. You've rescued the ship. The computer says, okay, well, there's going to be a smuggling mission. And then because there's a smuggling mission, we can also do the spy mission. And then because there's a spy mission, we could also do the VIP, or the legal edge case mission. The legal edge case doesn't have a passenger drop-off requirement. But because it requires politics, once you've done the friendly spy, you can also do the legal edge case. And that means that we can add more complications as the mission unfolds. So for example, the friendly spy trying to figure out what's going on with these smugglers, you might run into a legal edge case plot, which I would have to write. It's not generated on the fly. But it'd be a legal edge case like whether someone who is aboard your ship is legally allowed to re-enter the country or something similar. Or maybe it's a legal edge case that's related back to the cargo. And it's like, what's it called? That red satchel that they're allowed to carry. So it's a political exemption. It's a... shoot, I can't remember the name. When you're legally protected because you're like from another country and you're someone important. So you're like exempt from everything. We'll call this one a diplomatic immunity. That's the right word. Diplomatic immunity. We also have diplomatic immunity delivery. Diplomatic immunity revoked. Because these are supposed to be stories, so this is really the story, whereas these are just like half-hearted ideas. Diplomatic immunity delivery of something really bad, and you get to decide which way that goes. And we might go with a legal edge case of banned person re-entering dock. Sick. So there's like a lot of options, and we can write a whole bunch of stories here, and each one of them can have a variety of ramifications. Oh, asylum request. That's good. So all of these are stories that I would write in the game, and they would weave in to the main plot. But the question is, would they weave in a way that would work? Would I be able to weave them in a way that would unfold properly into the game? So, for example, if you're on your mission to grab this saboteur, you're going to reach, to grab the damaged ship. You're going to reach the ship, and you're going to start on the laborious process of spending tons of command and support points to repair and gain control of that ship. And now there are success and failure routes for that, but they're not very important. The important thing is that while that's unfolding, you're also going to get hit by a series of additional command and support requirements to deal with the fact that there's a smuggler aboard, that there's a spy aboard, and now suddenly there's like an asylum request perhaps, or something similar. And now the spy and the asylum request, they're gonna come together at the same moment at the end of the game. So when you're playing, or at the end of the mission. So when you're playing this, these don't all come online at the same time. They don't all stay online at the same time. So you'll get like a command expenditure. It'll be like, well, you know, you need to negotiate with the captain about some trivial detail, spend on command. And if you fail it, you don't realize that you failed the smuggling plotline. And if you succeed, you start to realize that there's a smuggling plotline in play. But the next section would be a similar command challenge about negotiating with a sleazy dude. And it's like, well, is this part of the smuggling challenge? Well, no, that's the spy. And both of these plots are happening at the same time, but they're not happening simultaneously in that you don't have to pay. Any given moment isn't going to request that you do all of those things. But here's the key. Here is the absolute key here. Anytime when there are multiple of the same challenge, you only get to play one subsystem of that type. So if there is a command challenge to take control of the derelict vessel and a command challenge to negotiate with the captain, whatever command module you pick is applied to both. And that's fine if they are both the same kind of challenge. But taking over the ship is a high challenge, and negotiating with the captain is a low challenge. So you need to play in such a way where it could be that there is a sweet spot between them, where you need to be like above 2 and below 5. But more likely, you need to be either above 5 or below 2. And that means that you could fail both, but you can only succeed at one of them. Unless you have really great crew. Because if you have a really great crew, you could soften those challenges by playing all of your crew to active. But then your crew are not available to negotiate with the spy. So the idea here is that the restrictions on how these unfold in the game will really make you think about how you want to see these things happen. But they're also going to reward you for being clever with how you set up your ship, because it's possible for you to set up your ship in such a way that you can actually handle these challenges. The crew is set up right, or maybe you have put in like a diplomatic or a communications jammer. And when you activate the communications jammer, you can pick one command challenge to knock back to the next round. And if you do that, then what you'll be able to do is you fire off your communications block and then solve one of the missions and then solve the other one. Of course, they keep coming, so you can't just sit there. But having that kind of option available to you allows you to sort of push at this flood of incoming challenges. And it's going to require that we balance these challenges carefully, because I don't want it to be like, oh, well, there's a low challenge to negotiate with the captain, and simultaneously there's a low challenge to negotiate with the spy, and simultaneously there's a low challenge to negotiate with the asylum request. I don't want that, because then the challenge is just play your lowest possible subsystem. I want it to spread out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a choke into the game where if you have the same kind of challenge, it doesn't get into the same moment, so the same turn. Relin says it'll take quite a bit of balancing. Yeah, balancing is critical in this kind of game because it's a simplified game, so it's all coming down to whether or not it's meaty on the balance side. But so if there is like a series of of complications where you have like low challenge, low challenge, low challenge, all of which are command, it's only going to show you one of those at a time. But if they have different challenges, it can flood you with them. And I think that's going to be fun. I could even make it so that it could go either way. It could have variant challenges based on whichever one is viable at the time. Yeah, that sounds like it might be fun. I'm excited. I think I can program this. This is something that is not easy, but perfectly plausible. It requires me to write in some weird ways, but I think I can manage it. All right, I'm happy. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to do any of it off screen. I may start on Wednesday. It depends on how much free time I've got. But I will tell you that I think it's going to be great. If it's not great, I'm going to be very disappointed. Great, meaning I have a low definition of great because this is a hobby project, but I think it'll be fun. All right, so thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. I am going to take a screenshot of this, I guess, and then I will call it a day. If you have any questions, this is your last chance. First pass at some mission task systems in my low violence spaceship game. Paste. All right, well, see you around, everybody. Maybe on Wednesday.